Over the years, countless musicians have lived by one creed: sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Sadly, it doesn't do much good for their marriages. Dave Grohl has been an enduring force in rock music for nearly 4 decades, but while he's famous for his affable demeanor and kindness to his fans, he has also been unfaithful to countless women. In 1997, Grohl's 3-year marriage to photographer Jennifer Youngblood ended, reportedly over his professed extramarital dalliances. This led to the end of one of Grohl's most important professional relationships, too. Foo Fighters guitarist Pat Smear is a friend of Youngblood, and the split prompted Smear to leave the band for several years. In the 90s, Grohl dated another rock star, Louise Post of Veruca Salt, before breaking things off with her to get together with Winona Ryder. Grohl also ruined a 2-year romance with professional snowboarder Tina Bassich because he took up with another woman. Then for a while, it seemed as if Grohl had finally settled down.
I have a pretty good life, I have to say.
Until in August 2024, he suddenly announced that he'd placed his 21-year marriage to Jordan Bloom in serious jeopardy. He wrote on Instagram, "I've recently become the father of a new baby daughter, born outside of my marriage. I plan to be a loving and supportive parent to her. I love my wife and my children, and I am doing everything I can to regain their trust and earn their forgiveness." The Foo Fighters canceled a number of tour dates and went on hiatus while Grohl dealt with his personal issues. In 2008, Blink-182 drummer Travis Barker survived a small plane crash that killed 4 people.
The plane was completely on fire. We were a ball of fire in the sky.
The accident left Barker traumatized, but it also led to a brief and fateful reconciliation with his estranged wife, Shayna Moakler. While Barker recovered from his injuries in the hospital, Moakler used his laptop computer, where she found numerous messages and scantily clad images sent by other women Barker had been intimate with during their marriage. In his memoir, Can I Say?, Barker wrote, "We had been on and off in that time, but that didn't mean she wanted to know about it. We both did our own thing when we were split up, but I never would have told her." Despite being infamous for his womanizing ways, Rolling Stones singer Mick Jagger seemed to have settled down with his girlfriend, Bianca Perez Mora Macias, just 9 months after he met her at a concert in Paris. But mere hours after their 1971 wedding in Saint-Tropez, it became clear that the rock star had no intention of changing his lifestyle. Over a decade later, Bianca Jagger told the New York Daily News that she had spent the night alone in the honeymoon suite while her husband palled around with celebrity wedding guests into the wee hours. She said, "My wedding was over on the wedding day." Both Jaggers carried on affairs throughout their marriage. The final straw came when Jagger started a relationship with American model Jerry Hall in 1977.
I was very impressed with how high Mick could jump in the air. I'd never seen anyone jump that high.
Jagger and Hall lived in a Paris apartment together at the time and were frequently photographed out and about. Bianca Jagger filed for divorce later that year. Speaking about the musical industrial complex in 1986, she told Vanity Fair, "It's probably the most male chauvinistic-oriented society. A rock star is the worst husband a woman could have." In the early 1960s, the Beatles honed their sound with a residency at the Cavern Club in Liverpool, performing at the venue nearly 300 times. One early fan who attended numerous shows was local teenager Maureen Cox, who struck up a romance with the band's drummer Ringo Starr. Cox later told Le Chroniqueur, "Here I was, a silly 16-year-old hairdresser dating the most popular drummer in Liverpool." Soon after, Cox became pregnant. She and Ringo married in February 1965. While the couple would eventually have 3 children together, the marriage suffered from Ringo's day-long drinking binges with other rock stars and multiple instances of philandering. Then, after his relationship with Nancy Lee Andrews came to light in 1974, the marriage officially came to an end. The breakup left Cox so distraught that she attempted to take her own life. Sonny and Cher scored a bunch of countercultural adjacent massive pop rock hits in the 1960s and 1970s, including I Got You Babe, The Beat Goes On, and Bang Bang. Sonny Bono had found success as a songwriter, but struggled to get much attention as a performer until he started working with his future wife in 1963. While she became a superstar singer and actor, Bono parlayed the fame his wife helped bring him into a life of serial cheating. As Cher told Parade in 2010, stardom made Sonny a huge womanizer. One woman or even 5 was not enough for him. I was trusting and faithful with him. The truth is, I'm not so sure we should have ever been husband and wife. By the time Cher grew wise to Bono's behavior, the couple were entrenched in their careers, and to split would run the risk of professional ruin. At one point, this dilemma even left Cher with thoughts of suicidal ideation. She recalled, "When I told Sonny, he said, 'If you leave me, America will hate you and you won't have a job.' I went, 'You know what, Sonny? I just don't care.'" Bono and Cher broke up in 1974, and they officially ended their marriage the next year.
And do you get along well with him to this day? Okay. And
Sonic Youth thrived on the interplay between the group's two primary creative singers and songwriters, Thurston Moore and Kim Gordon, who got married in 1984. Both the band and their marriage functioned well for more than 20 years, until Moore's ongoing affair brought everything crashing down around them. Eva Prince joined the band's orbit when she dated and nearly married a member of the extended Sonic Youth family. A book editor by profession, Prince also asked Gordon to collaborate on a book about the history of mixtapes. She declined the chance and figured Moore would too, but to her surprise, he accepted. Prince and Moore set up an office in a disused apartment, which they soon converted into an intimate living space. Gordon's worst fears were confirmed when she saw texts on her husband's phone referring to a romantic weekend trip. Moore denied everything when Gordon asked him about the affair, but fessed up after she said she had seen their text exchange. Moore never followed through on his subsequent promise to break things off with Prince, and in late 2011, Gordon and Moore announced that their marriage and Sonic Youth had come to an end. Gordon Sumner, better known by the stage name Sting, was in his late 20s when the police broke through in 1978. By then, he had already been married for 2 years to Frances Tomelty, the mother of his first child, Joe. Here's where things got tricky though. Back in 1977, Sting and Tomelty had lived down the street from an actor named Trudy Styler. Tomelty and Styler forged a friendship, which lasted through the police's first blush with commercial success. In 1981, Styler and Sting struck up a relationship, and Sting publicly identified Styler as his partner at a press conference. Their extramarital romance resulted in a pregnancy in 1983. By that point, the Police was one of the biggest bands in the world, and Tomelty had given birth to another of Sting's children. Divorce proceedings were filed in 1984, and after what Sting later described as an awful separation, he married Styler in 1992. Born in the USA sold 30 million copies and generated 7 top 10 hit singles, elevating Bruce Springsteen into global superstardom. The boss also sparked a media frenzy when in May 1985, he made plans to marry Julianne Phillips, having met the model and actor at his Los Angeles concert 7 months prior. The whirlwind romance peaked with a wedding conducted in secret in Phillips' hometown. Springsteen entered his marriage knowing it probably had an expiration date. He'd never had a relationship last much longer than 2 or 3 years. In the end, he admitted that he talked himself out of loving his wife. In his memoir, he wrote, "A part of me tried to convince myself that she was simply using me to further her career or get something. Nothing could have been further from the truth." At the same time, Springsteen began to feel a connection with Patti Scialfa, a member of his E Street band. As Springsteen wrote, "Patti was a musician, was close to my age, had seen me on the road in all of my many guises, and viewed me with a knowing eye." In 1989, he divorced Phillips and 2 years later married Scialfa. They have been together ever since. When it came to sex, drugs, and rock and roll, Motley Crue was one of the most destructively self-indulgent bands of all time. Drummer Tommy Lee often hit headlines in the 1980s, in part due to his high-profile relationships with female celebrities. After his year-long marriage to model Elaine Starchuk ended in 1985, he married Heather Locklear, at the time best known for her roles on Dynasty and T.J. Hooker. That marriage ended after 7 years, which Lee blames solely on his rampant infidelity. The drummer's next marriage to Baywatch star Pamela Anderson spanned from 1995 to 1998, during which time a homemade sex tape was stolen from the couple and widely distributed. That put a strain on the marriage, but it was Lee's physical abuse against Anderson that finally led to divorce. On one occasion, Lee struck Anderson while she held their baby. He was arrested, charged with battery, and sentenced to 6 months behind bars.
Was it a fun ride, or was it tragic or miserable? How do you assess it?
It was all of it.
Pattie Boyd met George Harrison on the set of the 1964 Beatles movie A Hard Day's Night, and in 1966 they got married. But then, after a 1967 Cream concert in London, Harrison's dear friend Eric Clapton met Boyd and immediately fell in love. In his autobiography, Clapton recalled, "I was overwhelmed. I realized that I would have to stop seeing her and George or give in to my emotions and tell her how I felt. He didn't do either of those things, though. Instead, Clapton allowed his 2-year-long romance with model Charlotte Martin to end, while also writing a bunch of songs about Boyd for his band, Derek and the Dominos. Because of Harrison's numerous extramarital affairs, Boyd left the Beatle in 1974, and within a few weeks, she had connected with Clapton. They married in 1979, but that's not the end of the story. Throughout the 1970s, Clapton dealt with a heroin addiction and then alcoholism. Boyd wrote in her book, Wonderful Tonight, he began in the morning and drank all day until 4 o'clock when Roger Forrester, his minder and later his manager, made him stop. Clapton was admitted to a rehab facility in 1982, but the ensuing period of sobriety lasted just 6 months. After he drank himself unconscious one day in 1984, Boyd decided to leave him for good. Ike Turner shot to fame when he met and later married Tennessee singer Anna Mae Bullock, renamed her Tina, and formed the rock-soul act Ike and Tina Turner. Together, they became one of the biggest musical groups of the early 70s, with hits such as Nutbush City Limits, Proud Mary, and I Want to Take You Higher. But their relationship was characterized by violence, trauma, and a horrific power dynamic. Things got off on the wrong foot when Ike brought his Tina to a brothel in Mexico mere hours after their 1962 wedding, and he routinely and severely physically abused her in the years following. In I, Tina, she wrote, "He used my nose as a punching bag so many times that I could taste blood running down my throat when I sang." Tina also categorized her intimate relations with her husband as sexual assault. She wrote, "Sex with Ike had become an expression of hostility, especially when it began or ended with a beating." Over the years, Tina suffered a broken jaw, numerous black eyes, and third-degree facial burns at Ike's hands. She left him in 1976. If you or someone you know is dealing with domestic abuse, you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. You can also find more information, resources, and support at their website,